Judy from the Quilting Bee, and I have been making a lot of coasters the last couple of weeks and picked up on a couple of tips that I thought might be useful for you if you're going to be making them. So I'm going to share those with you. Our coasters can come in two different patterns. Here we have the pyramid, the triangle shape, or you can go with the patchwork where you have the 4 squares. We'll do one of each of those right now. So we need, first of all, a piece of scrap fabric, 5-inch square. It can be any fabric at all because it's never going to be seen. So anything that you have laying around that you aren't using for anything else, a 5-inch square. We need a 5-inch square of batting. We need a 5-inch square of whatever we're going to use for the back side of our coaster. And then we need 2 coordinating prints, 2 of each, all 5 inches square. Let's see how we do it. So here are all my pieces, and this is what I'm going to do with it. We're here at my pressing mat by my machine. This is my spare piece that is anything at all. It doesn't have to match anything. I'm laying it down. I'm then going to take my 5-inch square of batting, position that on top. Try to get my edges all nice and straight. I'm then taking my 5-inch square of the back side of my coaster and face up, right side up, finishing off my sandwich. So I have 3 different pieces there. Let's put that aside. And we're going to do our triangle coaster first. So I'm going to take any one of the 4 and point to point right there. I will press that crease. I want it steamed well and pressed well. So now I will take my sandwich back, select any one of the 4, and folded side is here. So I'm putting it corner to the point. My point is going to a corner and laying it down. Then taking an alternate piece, a coordinating piece, to this next corner. Again, lining up my edges, and I really pin quite a bit for these coasters because you want those edges to stay good and true. So I have pinned once I have my second corner, turning it, going back to the fabric that I first started with, corner to corner, and I can see this is moving on me a little bit. There we go. Corner to corner. Going to put another pin in there, and I have 1 piece left for this last corner, lining it up, and my last step is to lift that one end, that one tip of my first fabric, so I can tuck this under. There we go. And again, I will pin. So my piece is ready to be sewn. So here I am, I've put it under my foot. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam, and my foot is a 1/4 inch, so I can easily go by the edge of the foot. And I have my stitch length at my traditional 2.5, I'm double checking that. And I like to start in the middle of one of the sides. I don't want to start at the corner because there's so much to work with at the corner. So I'm going to start where it's a little easier to begin, here in the middle of this section. And you notice I am not going to back tack. I am not a back tacker normally. I will come sew over my original first few stitches. So I'm just going to start here. As I'm getting down close to this corner, I'm going to make certain that all of these points are where I want them and hold them in place, and I will be stopping a 1/4 inch from the edge. Now when I stop a 1/4 inch from the edge, I've only made one stitch on this point. I want a little more securement, so I'm going to go another stitch or two and then go back my 2 because I want those points to be good and secure. I will turn it and check my alignment, pulling it taut, start down the other side. Started. So I'm going to try to be very straight as I come along and run over my initial few stitches that I started with. Okay. Now before I do any trimming, as we have to do for turning, I like to double check. I look at the back side to make certain all of my corners are well caught in the stitches, and it is. So I was successful, and we'll now go back to the pressing mat. Okay. All right, so we're back here at our pressing mat, and as with anything that we turn, we always try to get the corners so we have as little bulk as necessary. Being careful not to cut into our stitching and just trimming the very corners of this because we are now ready to turn. And we turn it the way we turn everything, getting our fingers inside of all of this. And you see now we're beginning to see the back side of our coaster. That piece that was our scrap piece, we are not seeing anywhere at all. All right. So now as we're turning, I have found that my thumb and nail really does a pretty good job. I try not to use anything pointing because our seam, that 1/4 inch seam, doesn't leave a lot of fabric after we've trimmed the corner, and we don't want to poke through. To massage it sometimes helps. But this is a coaster, it's not a collar, so we don't have to have a real sharp point. So I've done that corner. I'm going to bring my nail along the seam line over to the next corner and push. That one's coming out pretty well. And now to the next corner, going along that seam line because we want to have as sharp a point or an edge as we can get. And I am pushing, getting my point, always making certain that I'm going under all of the fabric. And continuing on. So that's our little package, but we want to make certain that we are as sharp on that edge as we can be. So just as with a placemat, we're sort of rolling it back on itself and getting a good edge, and we will steam that good. I usually count to about 10. Your iron may be a better iron than this little critter. So whatever gives you a good pressing. I'm not ironing. I don't want to go back and forth and move this fabric. I have it in place, so I'm just pressing. Again, making certain that I have a sharp edge, and we have one side to go, and all of our points meet here in the center like we want. So we feel we have been successful, and we're going back to the sewing machine. So what we're going to do is top stitch, and I like to top stitch about 1/4 of an inch. So again, I'm using my foot, and I like a longer stitch, a more decorative stitch. So I am going to 3.0 on my stitch length. Again, I'm starting in the center. I am not going to be back tacking. Instead, I will go over as accurately as I can my beginning stitches. So I'm going to go along all 4 sides. I'm going to the corner, and when I get there, I turn. Now there is so much bulk in the corners, you may have to nudge your machine a bit to get it to go over that hump. So I'm going to be coming down, and this is one reason I start in the center. I want enough distance to where I can make certain I'm lining up. Two, three, there we go. And it is finished. So now we're going to do the 4 square, I call it. So here's my scrap fabric for this coaster. So there it is, my batting. I'm using for the back side some fabric that's also going to be on the front because that's what I had. So I've lined up all 3, made my sandwich, and I'm going to start on my front 4 pieces. Started to do it wrong. So I'm going edge to edge, coming up with a rectangle. And just as before, making that nice and sharp edge on our rectangles. All 4 of them have been made into rectangles. I'm going to bring my sandwich back here, right side up for my backing, for my back side, taking one of the pieces, folded edge to the center. Double check that because it's very easy to get this turned around and be very sorry later on. Ask me how I know that. So, folded edges at the center. My edges are lined up. Now I'm going with a contrasting fabric along the next edge, lining up my edges, turning it. The other one of my original, putting it along the edge, turning it. And now this last piece, and picking up and tucking under. You notice I'm not pinning quite as much. These stay together a little better. I don't have those points to worry with. So I'm just doing a couple of them. And we're going to go back to the sewing machine. So we're back at the machine. I have taken my stitch length back down to my 2.5. And again, I start somewhere here in the middle. And I'm double checking my edges. Okay, there we go. And again, I'm going to check that my backing did not creep away from the seam line, and I'm all set there. And we can go back to the pressing mat. Okay, so we're back over here ready to trim away some of the corner. And make it a little easier to turn. Again, the coasters don't have to have a razor sharp corner. Slightly rounded is fine. And I'm going to turn it. It's sort of like finger pressing. We're getting that seam in the position we want it. And this last corner. And the last seam line. So that we are ready to bring our edge. We don't want any of the back showing on the top, nor the top showing on the back. So I will press. We want a lot of steam because there's a lot of fabric in that seam. And getting the center. If you're using a larger iron, you've gotten the center. This little baby iron isn't quite that large. So our 4 patches meet in the center, and we are ready to go back to the machine and finish this up. So here I am back at the machine, and what I'm going to do is the same thing we did with the triangular coaster. I'm going to change my setting to 3.0 and go all the way around, remembering that I may have to nudge it when I get to these fat corners, but it will be a quick and easy go round. So trim my threads back here. And there we are. Thanks for watching.